Coach Doty, welcome back to the basketball podcast.
You had me on back before there was video. We were actually doing it just over the phone years ago when I was at Emporia State, Division II school in Kansas. So I'm happy to be talking with you again here years later.
Me as well. And yeah, I'm grateful we're on to video now. And we both look so much better on video, of course. And now you're on to this experience at Houston Christian. And we're going to dive into that a little bit. Maybe let's start with kind of roster formation, roster turnover. Of course, you inherited the job with a quick turnaround to be able to get a roster together. And not just a roster, but putting a culture in place as well. So talk to us about the challenges of that and how you approached it.
It's interesting when you take over rebuilds, and this is our fourth one because we did this at Rock Valley College, we did this at Grayson University, we did this at Emporia State. All of them were preseason ranked last, or the previous season ended in the bottom two in their leagues. For some reason, our staff and myself, we must like pain. Because once you get it going, there's this snowball effect in a positive way. But you forget maybe the first year and how it goes the first couple of years sometimes. But we remember it again, having gone through this season. We remember the pain. We built this roster, inheriting a team that was 6-23 the year prior. When we got the job, everybody was in the portal, which they probably should have been, just based on a coaching change, based on guys trying to find a situation where they could get on the floor and succeed. And we ended up re-recruiting two of those guys back and having to get 11 guys signed. And it is very difficult to sign when they are going to the website and seeing that the program is 6-23. We have Houston. We are a private Christian school, which is appealing to many people and for a plethora of awesome ways. But players look at your past success as a coach. That's one thing, but they look at what the school has accomplished. Since then, we've doubled the wins from 6-12, which is a step trending in the right direction. Certainly not where we want to be, but in the right direction. And right now, a year later from getting the job, it is so much easier to have conversations with prospects than it was last. There were young men that would rather stop playing basketball than come to Houston Christian last year. And now we're going to have our pick on, certainly not our pick in terms of buying guys of NIL, because that's not really our deal. Our deal is finding the best fit, best resources that we can give to them from a scholarship perspective and bring in a group of guys that can be competitive. And for us, it's a little easier just because we're trending in the right direction now.
Beyond the money part of college nowadays, let's talk about your program specifically. So forget about the money. What are the things that you're selling a recruit on first? Is it the style of play? Is it the culture? Is it obviously past success? These different things that you're proven program builder, all these different things. Where do you start?
It's an awesome question. So for us, I think every job attracts something different to it. What we're selling here at a smaller Division I private school in Houston is completely different to what we're selling in rural Kansas at a Division II.
I
So
visited there. I can attest that it is rural.
it was great to see you there. In fact, we installed some actions on that team that were very successful based on you coming and spending time with us and giving us some ideas. So we're still grateful. These games come down to one or two possessions. So Chris Oliver and B-Ball Immersion, you guys certainly helped us win a couple
Well, I
games.
can't
That's
wait
for
to come to
sure.
Houston. That's the key now.
Major airport. Fine. So we're talking
Yeah.
about the talking points right now, what we're selling the kids. We have a major city right here with an NBA team 10 miles away. Okay. From our campus, 10 miles away in the Houston Rockets. With that, our nutritionist and her team through the hospital system, they work directly with the Houston Rockets. We have the same people that make smoothies and dietary plans for Fred Van Vliet and the Houston Rockets are in our facility talking with our student athletes. There's a sales point right there.
I can see the
Private
connection.
Christian.
That's
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We're going to keep diving into it. Private Christian school, obviously very important for believers. And I'll be honest with you, for those who even aren't sure on the faith aspect, there's a foundation in place, a moral code that's on this campus that protects student athletes, that protects students, that enhances people's walk academically, spiritually, athletically, and that is appealing to many student athletes and a benefit for us in what we're selling. Style of play is certainly another one. We run a ton of NBA style quick hitters. Sometimes I'm guilty of almost being an offensive coordinator in the NFL, Blue 42, calling in different actions. Players get an audible out of it. We want to play fast. We want to get stops and run, open threes or transition dunks or layups. If not, we're running an NBA style quick hitter oftentimes. And a lot of college coaches are playing 2, 3, 4 sides of the floor. Our thought process is if we can get the shot, if we can get one of our players in a strength position on the first or second side of the floor, it doesn't need to get to the third side. So we think a little bit differently than most. So I think coaches are starting to lean more in that direction. And if this thing gets down to 24 seconds, which I hope it does in the shot clock basis, we even have a better selling point. But in general, players want to be put in strength position. So we're able to show them the film. We try to find comparable players of what we've had in the past, show them how we've used those players, show them the data points, success they've had, what their numbers were with us, and then where they're playing overseas. We moved 16 guys, Chris, from Emporia State to overseas contracts when it was all said and done. I think style of play and how we're going to use guys, the student athletes want to hear that. And aside from the money, which we're not working with, we're trying to sell on prospects for the present and the future. Because if we can show prospects that coming to Houston Christian and playing for us will put you in a strength spot to perform, that's going to help us win games, and it's going to help them with their future pro careers.
Talk to us then about evaluating a possession, particularly around shot profile, shot selection. You're playing this style, and then obviously the most important concept that goes with that style is the type of shot that you generate since you're trying to play fast.
Yeah, I got sprawl ball by Kirk Goldsberry right here, literally
Love
right in
it.
front of me. And the mid-range mindsets, while the analytics and the people know that it from a point per possession basis, it's gonna be the lowest. No, you're not getting to the foul line on mid-range jump shots. There's a lot of reasons why you don't take it. You only get 2 points instead of 3. The percentage is lower than what it would be if you're finishing closer to the rim. For us, we really try to sell on what, number one, how we play, but also we craft how we play in a way that doesn't limit players. There are some players, because all of this data points on the mid-range stuff, which is a huge quality of shot conversation everybody has, it's looking at the whole body of work. And there's these anomalies, these anomaly players that shoot percentages outside of that. So what we usually say, because we recruit guys that shoot mid-range shots, and what recruit wants to be told during the recruiting process, you only get to shoot threes and shooting the key. Nobody wants to feel limited coming in. Now, we will say this, we want you to pay your mortgage with the 3 ball and in the paint, okay? But you can make your car payment with the mid-range, okay? So if you're shooting if you're crab dribbling and pulling up from the mid, why don't you just do that from 3 feet deeper, okay? And shoot a 3 on it instead. We're not going to take away anything from your game, but we're going to craft your game in a way that's going to help us win games, and ultimately is going to help you also become a better prospect for the future of your career. So now, generating shots is one of the most important things. A big thing is playing what we call out of Barkley. Some people call it Carmelo. All it is a guard backing in off the perimeter. We're not sitting and sealing, and very often I always reserve the right to do it. If there's a 7-foot big that I feel can change the game, I always reserve the right to go against what I'm saying right now. But over the past 5 years, you're not seeing teams that I coach have a big posting up strong side very often. We want that open for driving lanes. We want that open because all we do if we get cut off on the drive is then spin that, and we're barklaying back now and playing out of back to the basket. And the biggest question I ask recruits all the time is, who are the best back to the basket players in NBA history? And such modern kids always just say LeBron on everything, but that's a good answer. He's a guard. He's a perimeter player, who he guard for. I mean, LeBron could play 1 through 5, but he is a perimeter player, but he does get to backing in. All right. Kobe Bryant got to backing and playing off both shoulders. Obviously, he emulated his game like MJ more. He literally tried to be MJ plus. I think he based his career on. But MJ, in my opinion, is the best of all time. Now, you can look at Hakeem. You can look at some bigs that play off their back to the basket too. But we're selling perimeter players on not only being elite at shooting the ball, at driving the ball, and finishing at the rim, but also getting to a position where they're forcing 2 to the basketball. Kevin Durant constantly forcing 2 to the ball, one-hand push pass out, getting teams playing in rotation. And we're showing this on film during the recruiting process. We're selling it, and we're trying to explain why it's going to work for us to win games and why it's going to work for them to extend their career as long as possible.
I'm curious, the Barkley turning a drive into a post up. This is the more modern way to get to the post. And most of your players who come into your program, is this something they've been exposed to before? I'm just curious how much it's spread to lower levels.
Yeah, so I would love to be able to say names. Unfortunately, NCAA doesn't let me, but we're recruiting a young man from the Division II level, and his highlight film was just it was so elite because he showed his whole bag, everything he had in it. And whether he's driving left, driving right, getting to a Barkley back, and he already has this in his game. And our eyes are just lighting up. And we're really excited because he's going to fit what we do. And we can craft a lot of our offensive actions into catering to his style and other people's style that fit this. Our point guard last year, Elijah Brooks, we posted him up more than anybody else. We'd run out of pistol formation. And the first goal is just to get downhill off of that. And you can pitch to it, to a handoff, or you can just come off that. And usually it's guard to guard. And when you have a big guard, and oftentimes the opponent are going to put their smaller guard on it, especially when your point guard's bigger than your two guard. So they're putting their small guy on our two guard. We're having our two guards set that pistol screen there, and they don't really want to switch. They're trying to get through it. The whole first goal is to get to the rim for Elijah to turn the corner. And if not, he just spins it to a back end, especially if we get the switch. And we're forcing two to the ball and we're making them play out of rotations. And today, officials, at least in the United States in college basketball, they're no longer allowing guys guarding the ball in the post just to fall back and fall down. You better get drilled on the ball. And I'm talking primary defender, because the secondary defender is completely out now with the plant foot rule. And it's the best thing to happen to college basketball is 98 out of 100 charges that were called 2 years ago are now deemed to be a defensive foul because you have to be in position before the plant foot is there. So we don't even teach taking charges anymore in a second. But on the primary too, they're done with this flopping and falling down. It's almost getting to a point where you have to recruit players with strong chests that understand how to play that, what we call Barkley defense, that back end defense. Most players don't know how to do it. Most smaller guards certainly don't. So we gain an advantage off of that play. To answer your question, some players were introducing this to them, this concept, and they're open because we'll show them clips from NBA players playing with their back to the basket, especially off the drive first. Others already have it in their bag, and we're just enhancing it and putting it with the proper spacing. So when they're kicking the shooters, or we're having 45 cutters creating action for them off the weak side as well.
Love it. And such a powerful weapon in the modern game. And I want to reference something when I visited and watched practice, that something that you did that I think coaches need to think about even more. And that was this idea of running shell drill from half court or quarter court from the other end. And I thought that was such a great thing to be able to highlight for coaches. So can you talk about the philosophy behind that? And then a little bit more of the detail about how you actually do it.
Yeah, so when I coached Trey Buchanan, Trey played Division I at South Dakota State and averaged 5 points per game. He came to us in Emporia State and he led the country at 25.5 points per game. He's playing in France right now in Pro A League, and he was Pro B MVP last year, and he got a huge payday to go Pro A. He's just having a great career. And when I coached Trey, I really realized something that it validated with something that I always thought. And that was when good guards are bringing the ball across half court, whether that be in transition or whether that be even in the half court where we're taking it out after a made bucket. Good guards have surveyed what's going on as they're crossing half court, and they're surveying the gaps and they're surveying the defenders, because driving off the top from a scoring guard, we love our point guards to score. A lot of guys like their point guards to be setup guys, which is great too. We expect assist to turnover to be right side up. We'd prefer 2-1, but scoring guards may not be 2-1 on that, but they're going to benefit you so much by how they score. Those good guards, as they're bringing the ball up the floor, they're reading gaps and understanding and visualizing what read they're going to make. So to counteract that, as we had one of the best guards, we started running shell from half court and 3/4 court to extend that, to get our guys in the gaps right away. So we're showing and being active in those gaps. And we're a blend system defensively. We're not on the line, up the line, full denial. We're not flat in the gaps. We're not trying to force middle. We actually adjust on a personnel basis. Sometimes some guys we don't want to get the catch. It's based on who is guarding who at a strength spot. And it's if we get a switch, because we like to switch 5 ways, as Chris, if we have one of our big guys guarding a point guard, which will happen often, we need to load those gaps up even more. But if we have our best defender guarding the ball and shooters on the wings, then we're not going to cover the gaps up quite as much, because we trust the on-ball defense and we want to take away the perimeter shots. All of this is taught, we feel, even better when demonstrating at the half court and three-quarter court level because it emulates more of a full possession. And Coach Lavery runs our defense. You saw him run into stuff at the practice. He has change drills now where we're coming down. He yells change, and now we're sprinting back to the other side. So we're trying to keep blood flow up, heart rate up during practice. Our thing is to speak in sentences during practice and paragraphs in pre-practice, paragraphs at the end of practice. But we want to go quick. We want to get in and out of things and put bodies through actions that are game-like because that is how they're going to learn, is by making reads against players in live action and not necessarily stopping it all the time. We can show the film later. That's why we film practice. Let them make a mistake. Let them learn and let them grow from that. What a great way to teach. And when they make mistakes, it's practice. That's what it's for. And we'll clean it up later and they'll improve because of it.
I love that. I love that phrasing, paragraphs and sentences. It's a great way to be able to explain it to coaches and to understand it and keep yourself accountable. The part about the show, I love that. It's just like more representative of the game and the challenges of playing the modern game as well, which you highlighted. The other one that you did is this, you use constraints, you use shot clock. Yeah, 7 second shot clock, 5-on-4 from three-quarter court. And it was beautiful because, again, emphasizes your pace of play.
No question. How can we get the reps that we need to get as quickly as we want? Because players get bored. We're running 140 practices a year. Like, they get bored. Like, how can we get to the point? And there's going to be a zone day, right? There's going to be the days that are slow and more grueling and days that you're just going to have to slow it down. We don't like to do those. And if we don't have to, we're going to try to create those situations as quick as we can. Chris, our newest thing is ball screen progression. Our staff has done an elite job of every time we're preparing for a team, where in this league especially, it's not as much of a copycat league as the MIAA was, where everybody's guarding ball screens in a similar way, maybe besides two of the 14 teams have a unique way of doing it. In this league, it's so different, whether they're icing the wings, whether it's drop coverage, hard hedge, how do they guard ghost screens? Are on the ghost screens, are they hard hedging too quickly? Is it going to open up pocket passes for us? All of these things that we show on scout tendencies. And when we're going slow, it's in pre-practice film. And I think, everyone who's listening at every level, film is your best friend. And I think the more we can emphasize that young men and young women can look and see, learn from the visual, and then go and put them on the floor to do it. Our ball screen progression that Coach Sitlak and Coach Lavery and my staff has put together, I thought has prepared us at an elite level for every opponent that's upcoming. So we're not only ready for it, but our attack points change. We can keep running the same action, but the attack points change based on how they're defending it. It's been a great progression. What I want you to do is come down and hang out with us, because I think when you see it, you're going to be able to even elevate it even more. We're all about ideas. We're always learning. I love this story on learning. Will Wade is at McNeese State right now, and he came in there and brought a ton of NIL with him and got the best players in the country and all that. But it's much more than just that. You have to coach your team, and you can't. There are other programs in this country. Some of the highest NIL programs in the country in United States college basketball are not even in the NCAA tournament. So that just shows that you have to be able to coach. You have to connect with your guys, build a culture, and put them in strength positions. That's why I'm glad that's not a focal point of our conversation today, Chris. We identify, but then we talk about the coaching stuff. Will Wade can coach, and they beat us by 15 at our place. They handled us, and they're a top 55 ranked team in the country, despite coming out of the Southland. They're in the NCAA tournament. They've lost one Southland game in 2 years. After the game, he waited till that evening. He texted me, and we started going back and forth and learning from each other. And he gave me everything he could give me. I gave him everything. And we wanted to help each other. And I think that's why we're talking right now, isn't it? Is to help coaches so we all can help our student athletes at the highest level possible. And that's why that's why you're welcome back. I even cover your flight coming on in, Chris. Let's get you on in here. If I could afford you, I'd hire you on staff, but I know you're doing too well in this private business world. And maybe someday, that's my pipe dream wish, that I can get a high major job and hire you on staff.
I appreciate that. That'd be fun. But Will Wade, what a great story. What a great example of, you've been in coaching a long time, just like me. And some of that camaraderie that it used to exist where, as certainly an opponent, you want to win, but you still have these interactions and these times to hang out and these times to share. And that's just a beautiful story and a reflection of kind of who you are as a learner as well, which I think most coaches who follow you on social media see that as well. Curious more the blended style of defense, because The what you've explained, but talk to us about how you actually do that in practice. Different days in practice, are you emphasizing different players? Okay, we're in denial here, we're in the pack here, we're doing this here. How are you bringing that to life?
Not as well as we should have this past year because our field goal defense wasn't as good as we wanted it to be.
Not your perfect roster yet either, though.
That is correct. That matters. And when you have four big guys get injured, four of your bodies get injured, everyone can have a smaller guard on the floor. In fact, I encourage that, especially if those are tough. But you can't have multiple small guys at each position. That really hurts you, especially defensively. That's kind of what we ran into. But how we build our defense is number one, we get our roster established and assembled. And that's happening right now in the American college basketball world as we're all recruiting. The portal's going nuts. The Pavia lawsuit out of Tennessee where the quarterback got the extra year. Now junior college and NAI doesn't count. So all your best NAI guys that would have graduated are all available. Every Division I, Division II guy who played a year of junior college, they all have an extra year to play next year. So there's just so many guys that you can recruit and you can
I have no idea how you're keeping it all straight.
It's very difficult. We're all trying to figure it out. And there's guys hiring NIL agents that have no business playing Division I, and there's other one. It's the Wild West right now. We're trying to control the things that we can control. And as we establish our roster, Chris, then we will finalize what we want our default defense to be. And so I think you have to have a default before you can work off of something. If you're introducing new concepts all the time, everyone's head's going to be spinning. I think you have to have an identity as a defense first. And if your identity is to not have an identity and to do 1,000 things, you're probably not going to be very good at any of them. So we want to be really solid, if not great, at one style defense. And the preferred way for us is to switch 5 ways all the time. What we've learned this past year is maybe we shouldn't be doing that all the time. However, if you are teaching escorting up, pressing into a ball screen, and then switching, that is completely different on both the guy guarding the basketball and the guy guarding the screen are completely different than if you're going to go over top of the screen guarding the ball and the guy's going to be in drop coverage and then you're going to recover back and you're going to tag a roll man. Completely different. You can't go from one to you can't all of a sudden halfway through the season, not having worked on that all year long, say, you know what, we're not going to switch today. In fact, in practice, when we run what's called opponent defense, which is more traditional style because most teams are not switching 5 ways, we're very bad at running our opponent's defense because it's not our identity. So when we establish our roster, we will then, hopefully this year, and we imagine it will look like a team that will switch 5 ways. And we'll start working on all of those key principles. Again, escorting is a huge thing. Post defense is a huge thing. Are you going to full front the post? If so, when do you full front? My earlier teams got caught full fronting way too high up the floor at 12 feet, opens up high lows too much. Now we're sitting behind and pressing, but then you got to work to the front if you get buried. Do we run the double on the strong side? That's what we have been doing. The new way in college basketball has been more of a pro way, is to actually take away that high side completely, force the spin back, and then you got the baseline double coming. In fact, Texas A&M did it to us, North Texas did it to us, and it was absolutely paralyzing. I'm again talking to you, I'm begging for stuff from you here. I need one action that will bust that up, okay? I need one action that will take that apart because these teams, because the backboard is their friend. You can't skip the ball very easily. They're able to cover up the counters. The pressure is so good. It's such an elite way of guarding. Now, when we establish our identity, we'll work on that identity in the summertime for 4 to 6 weeks. We get 8 weeks with them every summer. In Division I, you get to work for 8 weeks in the summertime. Then we start working, and we're gonna be better at this year. So we're gonna start talking variable play out of our default defense. Variable play will be, hey, we got a big guy. He's just not switching well enough. He can't keep the ball in front. The options we have are to never play the guy, okay? Or to put him on the floor and put him in a spot where he can be effective, which means we may have to change off of that. And we're going to be much more, in the past, I've been, hey, you guard the ball or you don't play, simple as that. And I think I have to adjust as a coach. I think every coach should look in the mirror every year and change 10 to 20% of what they're doing. You need to keep about 80 to 90% if you've been successful, but change 10 to 20% of what you're doing. The way I'm changing next year is to not be quite so stubborn and asking, if you want an elephant to climb a tree, you're going to think every elephant is the worst elephant in the world, okay? You have to find strength spots, even on defense, for your guys if they're going to be effective. And while we want them to switch effectively, if they can't do it, it is my job as a coach to put the total, because defense is a team deal. It isn't like offense where you can just hide the dude in dunker spot. It isn't like offense where you can just make him a cutter. This has to be moving parts, five guys in synergy with each other. We're gonna do better at variable defense, but I think everybody needs to start with their default first and really build up off their default.
It's fascinating to hear you talk about that. And the fixed part of that is that you have to be fixed at some things, that these are our fixed mindset things. This is what we're doing. And then we can adapt from there. And I love that point. Thinking of fixed too, as you're talking, I'm thinking about it from a player perspective too, with the roster turnovers and different things like that. You have to make a decision as a coaching staff every year, basically, about what can I actually improve in someone versus what I cannot improve in someone in potentially a short time with them to make them functional. How do you take us through that process? You get a player now in the recruiting portal, they come into your program, and then what are you thinking? I'm going to change this or I'm not going to change this about this player.
I love, again, another elite question that fits modern day basketball. We coach junior college. A couple of the trophies behind me are from national championships that we won at the junior college level. And I think today more than ever, junior college coaches have an advantage on this because we're just used to managing roster turnover. And that's something that my career started out doing, was bringing in new players and then putting them into strength spots. I think system basketball is very difficult today because if system basketball means, hey, it's going to take, a half a year for this young man to really get to where he needs to. Now you're past semester time and they may or may not be there. They may figure it out and then they're gone. Okay. So now what? Now they're going to a whole different system somewhere else. I think teaching has to be expedited, not compromised, but expedited. And that is on us coaches to be able to take student athletes that come from different programs, have learned different concepts, put them into positions. I'll be honest, like we're 7-3 in the conference this year, halfway through. We're ranked number 2 in the Southland before we just got decimated by injuries. And we had moved the net in this program. College basketball is a net rating. There's 364 teams. We inherited 357 in the net, and we got it down to 252. So over 100 positions better than what the program was when we inherited. That was on January 31st. And if you would have saw our team in July when we first came in, and we have this little militaristic style, we start practice. It's just simple 5-man weave, ball can't touch the floor. You got to call names out and make a layup. It took us 45 minutes to do 5-man weave effectively. And like we couldn't pass, we couldn't catch, we couldn't make a layup. Our guys were exhausted. Our staff's looking around. I don't know what this is going to look like. And credit to my staff because they did such a great job. Credit to the student athletes. They worked every day and they became effective basketball players. By the time conference play started, we were competitive every single game and had the chance to win and started off 7-3, like I said. And that's not because we're trying to run a system that takes a semester to learn or years to learn. Some old school college basketball coaches, they wouldn't even count on freshmen and sophomores. Hey, they'll get it figured out by the time they're a junior and senior. You can't think that way today. You have to get your talent playing well immediately. It's more of a pro mindset. This is the same thing in the NBA and in professional overseas. You're adding talent to a roster, sometimes all kinds of talent without even a huge foundation set. And then you need to be adjustable with your teachings and coachings and your style of play to be able to put those guys in strength spots. The coaches that do that the best are the ones that are going to continue to trend upwards. The coaches that don't are going to retire.
Absolutely. And I'm curious then with these players that are coming into your program, how are you evaluating them from like a leadership perspective, like a culture builder perspective? Because obviously you need allies in the room. And it's like, how is Craig getting these players to understand, first of all, what type of ally he wants, but also how are you identifying the ones that are going to be your best ally?
Biggest challenge all of us coaches have, because even me, if I have a student athlete that's leaving my program, I will not lie for student athletes, but everybody who will call about a player will hang on to the negative stuff you say, and they'll make it as an excuse now. And you don't want to bury the guys that didn't work out for you, because maybe my coaching style in our program, I could have done a better job. And so I expect the same thing out of others. Now, again, I'm not going to lie for somebody. If they're just a terrible human being, we'll just say, hey, it didn't work out with us. There's not a lot I'm going to dive into. It just wasn't for us.
Just on that point, do you call like they're a transfer from X university, do you call that coach or the coaching staff? Yeah.
Absolutely. We do a full vetting process on all the student athletes, but
I
we
was just more
also,
curious if you're going to
yeah.
get like an actual answer is
Well,
more.
and that's why I started with
Yeah.
what my answer would be, because I don't think any coach wants to bury anybody. I think we're in the business of helping young men. So you have to read through the context clues. I try to collect the student athletes who the coaches say, one of my favorite players I've ever coached. Those are the guys you want to collect on your roster, at least from a culture building standpoint. Now, we do have 5 guys coming back next year that had played with us this year. So we have a foundation in place. And 3 of those 5 guys have great leadership skills and they know what every day looks like. So we feel now we can take maybe 1 or 2 higher risk guys that maybe have had some problems in their past in terms, whether it be, you can't stack problems, but I'm saying a problem academically. Maybe they had a problem being a good teammate at all times. Maybe they had a motor issue at times. But if they are, for instance, 2 levels up from us, because we're considered probably a low major level, if they're a mid-major specific or even a high major talent, and we feel like through conversations with them, and they've recognized, they understand, and they're ready to move forward. And we have a culture in place and they're ultra talented, can help us win games. We feel like if our culture is strong enough, the pendulum's going to swing in the right direction for us. That in the NBA too, players that just don't work out on some rosters, but then they get traded mid-season and they're doing a great job. And you're wondering what it is. Some of it's system and how they're being used, but other is just what's the dynamics in the locker room. So your question, though, is a great one. And it's the biggest challenge that all of us coaches have at all levels is how do you build rosters that you're bringing in and you have a good idea of what it's going to look like from a locker room culture standpoint? And the answer is we really don't know till everybody's here. And then once it's here, our job is putting out fires every day. Management is a huge thing in college coaching, especially for head coaches. Who's setting the tone in the room every day? It's going to be your head coach and it's going to be your leader and best player. And hopefully it's great if your leader is your best player. It's not always the case. Then you can have some problems. But those tone setters matter because there are some great coaches out there that are elite tacticians. They're not very good head coaches. And they become head coaches and they lose. And people are like, it makes no sense. They ran the defense at this program prior. They ran the offense prior, and we see it. It's really good. Being a leader of a program, sitting in the head coach's chair means management. And sometimes those are having really hard conversations. Sometimes it's dismissing a player from the team, even though that's not what you want to do. Sometimes it's what's necessary needs to happen. A lot of times it's saying no to all these recruits, these thousands of young men that are available right now. You have to say no to 99 of them that you can get to say yes to the one that belongs. And you try to hit a home run on everyone. But I'm telling you right now, you're going to miss. And when we miss, then it comes into management. And if, again, we go back to the pendulum, if you got bad dudes and more bad dudes in the locker room and strong personalities in the locker room that don't lean in a positive way, it's going to go the wrong way. If you got good dudes in the locker room, you can handle 1 or 2 higher maintenance guys and they're going to jump on board with you and it's going to make your team better.
A lot of coaches are in this mode, getting ready for off-season workouts. So this is great timing to be able to ask you, what are some things that are important to you in getting ready for these off-season workouts?
First off, I don't know if you're talking about staff workouts or player workouts because our staff has been in the weight room, okay? So I think for all the coaches listening, I think this has been an awesome thing for us this year is I've made it mandatory that you lift 3 days a week with our staff. We have to do it together. Now, you develop little cliques in your staff. Certain guys like to lift with each other, but we're in the weight room together. And as the head coach leading this, number one, it holds me accountable because it's a stressful year. I get in there, I get my work in, but it also allows the others to know, wow, the coach is on board with this. Because if your head coach doesn't care about fitness at all and you're going to work out, you may feel like, oh my gosh, like he may think I'm not working because I'm trying on a staff. I know that wasn't your question, but I wanted to bring that up because I thought that from a staff chemistry
that's
standpoint.
interesting. If you're going into the weight room, do you have a set time every day and then certain players are joining you? Is that the idea?
Yes, so not the player side because we want to we're still young enough coaches where we feel we want the players to separate themselves and don't view us as players. So they don't see us work out. Yeah. It's just coaches. Now this spring, as we only have 5 returners coming back, we are bouncing the idea off the wall of actually lifting with them. I don't need to do the lifts they do. I don't need to squat a ton of weight. We're working on,
Not the same
more.
workout. That's why I was curious.
Yeah, it's a little bit different as I'm approaching 40, but I think that's been just great for our staff in terms of staying in shape, keeping stress levels down. There's a sauna here at our college right out connected to our health center. So again, we're doing executive workouts too, which is just the sauna, but no, we're doing real workouts and that's been very beneficial. So huge thing for our staff this year. I highly recommend every head coach looking at that. We setting a time that you got to be in there. You're open 5 days a week to go, but you have to go 3 days a week. And that gives the flexibility if you got something to do and you don't have to go 2 of the days. So you'll catch most of your staff going all 5. That's the fun part of it. But in terms of player workouts, as we're preparing, it gets a little bit different than it has been in past years, just because, again, we have 5 returners. In the past years, in the old way of college basketball, you graduate a couple guys, everybody else is coming back. The guys who are graduating, they're coming to work out with you. You can get up and down, play some 5s, let the guys get loose and free a little bit. I like spring and summer to be a time for guys to sample things. If you want to work on your step back, then that's when you need to work on it and show that you can do it. You don't work on your step back 2 days before the first game, okay? You advance and develop your bag in the off season. And part of that is being able to play 5s. 5s is probably the least productive thing you can do, but it allows them to take the productive side of things on the individual player workouts and just sample them and try them out. So I do think that there's an application there that's beneficial with no stress of getting yelled at. Hey, we're charting it. Okay, we'll keep charting it and we'll tell you either why you can shoot it or can't shoot it later on, but this is the time to work on it. But how we get to advancing what these players have is, number one, we do a deep film evaluation of them. So we look at the film first, we talk about their strengths. So we identify those and how can we continue to take those to the next level? Because I think people that just work on their weaknesses and don't advance their strengths are doing themselves a disservice. How can you continue to just dominate in the way that has made you a great player? Second thing we do after looking at those is look at weaknesses and then everything in between. And we identify and come to a partnership with them on what they can do with development in their game and how we can help them, that when they go on the floor next year and it's game time, it's going to help them and help the team together. And if we're talking Barkley plays in perimeter back ends, and maybe they got the right body for it, but they're just not bought in on it, that's fine. Then we won't work on that. Okay, I'm not going to force something down. And this goes back to being adaptable as a coach in this modern era. The players have to agree to it as well. The best way they agree to it is seeing LeBron do it, is seeing all modern players do it. You can show them that and say, hey, you think you could do that? You want to try that? You want to sample this? Usually they'll say yes. If you're trying to do something that isn't done by the best of the best, that's going to be much more difficult from a buy-in standpoint. But we're pushing buttons over here, Chris. We're trying to push buttons mentally constantly because we have to do things that our guys are going to be all in on. Not all of them all the time, but certainly our strength guys, because that from a leadership standpoint, again, it's going to swing in a direction. You're never going to make everybody satisfied. You can't cater to everyone individually in all aspects. But on the player development side, that's probably the most tailored you get to go. And we're going to tailor it to advancing strengths and improving weaknesses.
It's such a fascinating time, I know, in college basketball. And you reference this as a program builder. You've experienced this. You forgot how hard the first year is in a way, but I know, but I'm curious more from that perspective now of you had it going, you got to 7-3, and then again, it didn't keep going up. And that's really a characteristic of program building is it's not all straight up. It's ups and downs. And how you manage that is obviously key as a coach. So can you talk to all the coaches out there about how you manage the ups and downs for your roster in particular, but also for you to be able to
Yeah.
keep yourself emotionally stable?
Yeah. First thing I'll do, and I think every coach needs to do this, is at multiple parts of this podcast, you've heard me be critical of myself. And I'm going to be critical of myself here too. I think I coached too frustrated this year. And then I'm like, okay, I'm not going to coach frustrated this game. And the guys aren't responding. So I'm like, this is why I coach frustrated. They're used to hearing me get on them when things aren't going very well. So in general, though, I thought that I coached too frustrated and didn't handle it as well as I should have. And my wife played college sports, so it's always great to talk to her. And she's sitting behind our bench. She has a great pulse on our program. Everybody should marry somebody whose wife actually knows what they're looking for in player body language and stuff, because you're looking for it at the court most of the time. You don't get to see everything else. If my players knew she was spying on them at all times on all their little body language antics stuff, I get some great feedback there and from our staff. We lost 12 games this year, Chris, that we had the lead with 10 minutes to go. And it's just heartbreaking stuff. And I always say with our guys is to put the first 25 to 30 minutes on me and the last 10 to 15s on you. Because at the end of the day, all the championships you win, players win. Guard play wins down the stretch. Making free throws, getting stops, guards taking over game. This is what win, or at least in my experience, that's what's won games. We struggled, and the first thing I do is look in the mirror and say, what could I have done better to help the guards and help our team down the stretch? Now, we were decimated by injuries. We had 7 scholarship players, missed 99 games. They were working as hard as they could. The last game of the year was a 2-possession game. We still made the Southland tournament. 8 of 12 teams did. And it's a 2-possession game with a minute and a half to go. And out-rebound us on the game 43-21. There's just not a lot we could do with all of our size off the floor. But we fought every day, and we believed in our guys every day. And I think that belief allowed us to carry on. You're not seeing us getting blown out this season. Every game we either won it or had a chance to win it, as long as it was against a lower mid-major. That's absent of playing Texas A&M, Creighton, and the Longhorns of Texas, okay? So we're competitive every single night. And I think the spirit, coaches who are going through this growth process, my advice would be, number one, try not to coach frustrated, but yet still hold guys accountable. And I think there's a fine line between those two things, because if you're not having a level of accountability and showing a level of expectation and belief, your guys will not rise to the best that they can be. Trying to walk that line, but I also think leading with love. I think that's important today. Young men and women don't respond as well today to a militaristic approach as they did in the past. And this story here, I think about it all the time. When I was in junior high, my junior high football coach, and I was from small town South Dakota, Chris. And when you're from small town South Dakota, you just dominate in every sport. And I was cocky, and I'm in junior high football, and I was probably running in my mouth, and I was the best player in the field. My coach grabbed me by the face mask and threw me to the ground. And I remember puffing my chest up, going home and telling my dad. And my dad called the coach, and he said, what did he do? He told him, he says, do it again next time my son acts like that. And there was this in different era. Parents said, you know what? You're with my son at that time. You hold him accountable. Today is completely different. Number one, parents don't yell at their children and discipline them in the same way that I was disciplined. And I was spanked with a hand. My dad was spanked with the belt. Okay. And now we don't spank our kids very often if we ever have to. You know what I mean? So everything has changed from approach. So when you're coaching young men and you yell at them and you scream at them, the response usually is to put a shield up because they're not used to receiving criticism in that manner. So part of the evolutionary change is finding what makes modern athletes tick while still holding them accountable and not compromising your values. And there's a way to do it. There's a reason certain coaches are retiring and certain coaches are thriving. Even Rick Pitino had a rant in the locker room where he was going off, and a lot of coaches heard it, about where are you guys from? Where is your toughness? This is what life's going to be, with a lot of F's and expletives in there. But that is a small sample of Rick, who leads with love. From the people I talked to that have been around his program, he's changed so much. When he went overseas and coached, it helped propel him for probably another 10 years of college coaching, because he left Louisville and all that situation. He went overseas and coached high-level pro. I think he was in Greece, wasn't he? And it changed his whole perspective of how he manages. So you still can have moments
Couldn't
of hard
coach the pros
accountability.
the same way you did college players. That's the gist of it. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And that's the best way of putting it. And he has the experience on both sides of that. So I think we're all trying to find a balance, because a soft coach doesn't get anywhere either. You can't be a pushover. You have to have command. You have to have respect. You have to build culture. But how you go about it, I think you got to be flexible as you move forward in your careers.
Few coaches have probably more of a pulse, at your level at least, on high school coaches and what the questions are they're bringing to you because of your social media presence, because of the psychological safety you've created for coaches to be able to reach out to you. You have a good pulse. So, what are some of the issues that high school coaches are bringing to you? And what are some of the possible solutions, maybe, of, say, one or two of those questions?
Yeah, the biggest challenge high school coaches have, that I'm getting two questions, is one, management, because their politics are so different than ours, because of parents and parents overbearingly jumping into their program, using leverage to school board members and any power people in their community. That is a major challenge, and unfortunately has driven a lot of the best coaches out of coaching. And now we're left as college coaches to clean up now, because when there's great home training from parents, when there's great training from high school coaches, it makes college coaches' jobs easier, because you have student athletes that are more ready, that are prepared for the ups and downs of what life brings at you. Forget basketball. We're talking life. And high school coaches really struggle on a management standpoint to balance the politics that go hand in hand with that. I'm trying to find a consistent
Not
solution.
easy ones for that, for sure. Yeah.
I don't think there is a consistent solution for it. I think you have to play the game to a certain extent without compromising your values. I think you have to overly communicate. I think you have to avoid taking jobs where these situations arise. But sometimes the new administration comes in and it all changes. And so the people that vibe with other human beings the best. There are some people that, if I have a bulldog athletic director or administrator that wants to just leverage and push, I can manage them, because I probably know their heart's in the right place, and I have the ability to communicate with them. If I have an AD that lets me do whatever I want to and just roam, I can manage that, because I'm going to hold myself and our staff accountable to success. Some ADs will go move furniture to get things done. Others, you have to go do. I just think being flexible today is the biggest thing. The other challenge that they're running into is player management from a standpoint of kids leaving their program. Same thing we're running into as college now. We just encouraged and helped two of our guys to enter the portal. Our two leading scorers this year who were efficient from the field and from three. Bryson Dawkins was on SportsCenter twice for top 10 plays. He hits the portal, announces. He has multiple offers ranging at six figures and above, and from NIL. We've encouraged that. In high school, it's a little bit different situation, because there are players that coaches are working with and growing and building, and then they're trying to leave the program because the grass is going to be greener on the other side of the fence. Maybe they're going to, they were growing through a prep or through a high school, and they're trying to go to a prep school. And is it the right move? Is it not? Who are they listening to? These are all the biggest challenges that I'm hearing from high school coaches, is how do you manage administration and rosters from a political side of things? And then how do you manage rosters with retention and continuity? The solution on the other is continue to be flexible. Every market is different. Small towns are still valuing community basketball. Now, you look overseas, there's people that high school programs, high school players aren't a part of high school teams. It's all clubs. So it's different. So it's so situational to where you're at, but it all comes back to personality and working with. This is a people game. Life is a people game. And can you communicate? And can you put a vision in place that's gonna work for where you're at? It's not going to be the same for each one. And if you know it's not going to work for where you're at, based on whether it be your administration or just the situation that you're in, then you need to be seeking a different job. Coaches have to be mobile today. And if you're not mobile, then maybe you should look at getting an administration instead.
Interesting perspective and some good advice there as well in this landscape that's ever changing and faster change than we could ever have imagined, I think, for college sports, especially the last time we spoke. Coach, you're one of these coaches. You've coached at all levels. You've moved up progressively. Now you're at the Division I level. Probably always a goal of yours. You're going to be successful. I already know that. Can you just speak a little bit to that process of moving up? And we see it across the landscape of coaching. Coaches that have run programs at different levels are having success at the Division I level, moving up from Division II, Division III, junior college, etc.
Yeah, I started as a high school coach, then junior college, then NAI, then Division II. And now, yes, the dream was to become a Division I coach. And here we are sitting in Houston right now, and it is currently 81 degrees outside in March. My family and I, we're living a dream, living a challenge, but one that we signed up for and one that we embrace. That journey is so difficult. I got friends in the industry who I've met because I didn't play Division I basketball. I played NAI. And I have friends who I've met who played Division I. They instantly plugged into a Division I staff, and their pathway to coaching is at the highest level of college basketball in the United States. Mine was not. I started with high school for 1 year, and we had relative success, but then I jumped on as an assistant college coach at the junior college level. And I get a lot of that question comes up a lot. I hear from 40-year-old high school coaches who want to be college coaches. They want to know how they can. And the answer, it's so difficult at that stage. And my answer is pretty consistent.
There's no answer, is there really?
If you have a mortgage, if you have children, if you have car payments, if you have expenses, How can you leave your combination teaching and coaching job that you're making 70, 80 grand for to go entry level coaching, which is going to be difficult enough to get. But if you do get it, you're talking $25,000 to $40,000, uprooting your family. It's so difficult to nearly impossible unless one of your friends that you have been with gets a college job, trusts and knows you, and they have a high paying assistant job. So it's very difficult. The best way to climb is going to be to start young. It's the same thing in the stock market. If you want to be a millionaire 10 times over again, you start investing at 18, small amounts at 18. Then by the time you're 60, that compound interest gets you to where you want to be. That's the best step from a high school coach's standpoint, is to work early on, get your foot in the door to college, but before you have all this other stuff going on in your life that's going to require your full attention and your full finances. Now, once you're in college, for us, we got a combination. Yes, we had good teams. We had good players. We got lucky. We built a brand, and it was attractive for athletic directors to hire us. And it started in junior college, where Miss Diopet hired me as a 28-year-old, and I went there, and we had success, won 2 national championships. And I just kept taking jobs that weren't very good, though. That's the other thing, Chris, that we've done. I've been willing to take jobs that everybody else said you can't win at. Rock Valley College, before we won 2 national championships, they called it rock bottom college around that community, okay? And now even today, it's a perennial power in junior college. Grayson University, we had 4 scholarships. I had to carry 2 JV teams. I had 4 full scholarships that spread out amongst 38 guys, okay? Like, how are you supposed to win there? And we brought those junior college guys with us from Rock Valley. We believed in ourselves. We bet on ourselves. A lot of people say that's the cliche nowadays, and it worked out. So I think you can't be afraid to take jobs that are tough jobs. Now, one of these are going to nip me in the butt, and it's going to get me unemployed. I'm going to get fired at some point in my life, Chris. I hope not, but it's inevitable in coaching that you eventually will. I'm doing everything in my power to make sure it's not at Houston Christian, all right? So we went to Emporia State from there, again, ranked last in the conference before we got it. And when these programs are ranked last, it still attracts a candidate pool. Every job is tough to get, but it becomes more attainable, especially coming off an NAIA national championship. The next logical level is Division II. And we looked at the resource and we thought we could get it done there. And we made a national tournament there for only the 2nd time in school history, and won the 3rd time making the national tournament in school history for NCAA, and only the first Division II national tournament win there, which propelled us to getting Houston Christian. Houston Christian has one of the most challenging budgets when you talk coach pay, player compensation, and then you look at facilities. But there are also really good things here. You can sell the city of Houston. You can sell being in a city with an NBA team. You can sell the climate. You can sell the system, the program, and you can sell trending up. You can sell moving guys pro. Every one of these jobs have things that the right candidate can go in and win at. And I think that's the biggest thing in advancing levels, is don't be scared to take on a major challenge. Now, don't run into one that doesn't fit you, because then you'll be unemployed. You could be back to square one. But if you're a program builder, then go to a job and continue to elevate on jobs that need to be built up. If you're a coach that has the best job in your conference, don't level up and take the worst job in the next conference. You probably won't know what's going on. You haven't felt that before. So I think that mobility from level to level really just comes down to personalities. Can you coach inner city kids? Can you coach suburban kids? Can you coach internationals? Everything is so different, and every job attracts a different level of player and a different type of player. So I think knowing who you are, being honest with who you are. Ben McCullum, my arch nemesis at Northwest Missouri State, he would never leave the MIA course. Then I get the Houston Christian job, and he leaves a couple weeks later for Drake. But smarter than everybody else, Ben McCullum was wanted. Everybody said, when is Ben going to get a chance in Division I? Ben passed on 30 Division I jobs. And because people don't know that, but he understood the job that he wanted, that he could succeed at. And his patience paid dividends. He continued. The other thing Ben never thinks about is losing. So he's like, if I'm getting these jobs right now, we're just going to keep it rolling at Northwest Missouri. I'll just keep getting more job offers. That's not a problem until I get the right one. He takes Drake, wins 30 games this year, and his name's in the conversation for every high major job in the country. Don't be surprised. And I don't have inside
information. Should be, right? Yeah.
As he should, but don't be surprised if he just stays at Drake either. Because if he doesn't get the right job that he wants, in his mind, I'll just win 30 games again next year, and I'll still be the same candidate I am right now. And so I think nobody knows who they are better than Ben McCullum does. And that's why he continues to have massive, it's one of the many reasons he continues to have massive success.
It's a tremendous example of kind of the era that you referenced, bringing some players from junior college to your next level, and he brought players from Division two to his next level, and those different things that kind of exist that didn't exist, say, 5, 10 years ago, and it's just amazing landscape. And man, I got to say this: I was flipping through ESPN Plus one night, and what comes on is a Houston Christian game, and I normally would not have clicked on that for any reason, and I did. And I watched the game and I watched a few of your games. And it just speaks to what you've built as your brand online and obviously the success you've had at different levels and all the sharing you do for coaches and well that you attract people to be able to watch Houston Christian. And that's pretty cool. And I hope you're proud of that because that's really a little bit of your legacy, I think, in coaching is at a lot of these places. I've never heard of these places, and you've made them places. Graceland is somewhere that I know. Rock Valley is somewhere I know. Emporia I've been to. You should be proud of that. It's incredible.
Well,
And
well,
I know you're
thank
going to keep growing and keep going and just doing a great job.
Well, thank you. I do, in all fairness, I do expect anybody that I give mimosas on the deck on a nice sunrise, I do expect them to tune in for the rest of my career. But no, I do appreciate that, Chris. I really do. And there's a lot of good restaurants here in Houston. We'd love to show you the city, show you what it's all about.
We'll make it
And
happen.
you,
We'll do it. But
seriously, we'll have a blast. And every time you and I spend time together, whether it be on the phone, whether it be on a podcast, whether it be face to face, I always learn something. So thank you for sharing the game. Thanks for what you're doing with your business. You talk legacy, you are leaving a huge one. And I'll be honest with you, I think you're just scratching the surface, man. Stay hungry, keep it rolling, and we're grateful for you and the basketball
thank
community.
you. And thank you to you and your coaching staff as well for supporting basketball immersion, group memberships, and all that stuff too. Just
It's the
awesome.
best. Hey, the best thing you can sign up for is to be a member of your group. I highly recommend every staff do it. They're going to do nothing but learn along the way and build a network and contact with you and your people. That's value cannot be measured. It's so important.
Thank you, Coach, and thanks for sharing and so many insights into the process and what you do and all the things that have led to your success. So thanks for sharing the game with us.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. Until next time, my friend.